Okay, my friends, here we are out in the garden. We got a lot going on. It is that time of year. It is finally warmed up. So in this video, we're going to talk about the transplanting of the peppers and what we're doing to ensure success. We got the ground cherries over here. We've got the beets coming up. We've got the ishikura green onions. We've got some garlic tips that I'm going to give you, something you need to be doing to the garlic right now, very important. Also, I want to take you back there and show you the tomatoes. We have a tomato experiment going on with several different things I want to show you guys, and so we're going to get into that right now. Okay, first thing I want to show you guys is the peppers. Now here are the peppers that I've just planted. Now peppers are one of the things that really you want to wait until the weather warms up. You want to wait until those nights don't fall below 50, 55 really, until that soil is nice and warm. But the downside of that is that you're going to be planting them right from your indoors, harden them off a little bit, but then they go right into the blazing sun like it is today. Okay, so in order to mitigate that, we're using this shade cloth, and it's really making it gentle. The transition is gentle for the plants. And so we might leave it here most of the summer. We'll see. I really like them because we had them over the tomatoes just the last week or 2 weeks, for like 2 weeks. But then now we just picked them up and moved them right here. And you can see that with the shade cloth, it's helping to sort of mitigate that blazing sun, which on this black cloth is definitely warm, but in the early season, that's really helpful. So you can see that the tomato or the peppers, even though we had a sort of catastrophe on timing this year, they still are looking pretty good because we started them way too early. We had to top them just to keep them from flowering, all kinds of stuff. But they look like they are going to bounce right back. They look like they're going to be pretty good. We got some new lateral growth on them, and all of them look to be adjusting pretty well. It's much noticeably cooler under this shade cloth than it is up here outside the shade cloth. So this is making everything pretty happy. I highly recommend that you harden them off and transition them really well, because I've had peppers go out directly into the blazing sun and they just fry, they just roast, and you'll see that sort of classic sunburn look. But with the shade cloth or something like it, you can help mitigate that. Okay guys, next thing I want to talk to you about is the tomatoes. Now we're growing all indeterminate tomatoes here, meaning that they're going to get big and they're going to just keep growing and producing tomatoes throughout the season, as opposed to the determinate tomatoes like the Romas that we're growing at the Viking North Garden. They are going to get to a certain size, set fruit, and then we can make things out of the huge bounty of harvest. These have all been selected to consistently produce tomatoes throughout the season, indeterminate varieties. So we've got a Cherokee Purple, we've got a Brandywine, we've got two Hillbillies, and I'll show you the experiment here in just a moment. But then we've also got a Purple Bumblebee, which we can never be without, because the Purple Bumblebee is the ultimate tomato for fermented tomatoes and for dehydrating, for sun-dried tomatoes, so delicious. And then we've got a Super Sweet 100. So here is the experiments that we've got going on. Okay, so check it out guys. Here we've got the tomatoes. Now, Cherokee Purples are tried and true, some of my favorite tomatoes of all time. But we're only gonna grow one of those this year, and we're going to let it just grow pretty much wild. Now, I have done this before with these cages from the last video that you saw me make, where I have just planted them and let them go totally wild. Never trimmed them or pruned them in any way whatsoever, and they really do wonderful when you do it that way. But this year I'm doing a little bit of a hybrid. You see down here at the bottom, if we can zoom in a bit, you can see that I've sort of removed some of that foliage from the bottom, the suckers. Otherwise, they're going to want to put out a lot of vegetative material early. But if you prune a few of the suckers, and you see how we have it kind of going up 2 leads here, we've got 1 lead, another one, we're going to encourage it to grow a bit taller so that it's going to sort of fill out the cage. And that's going to be important because we want this thing to be at least 5 feet tall, which it easily will be. It'll grow out and then fall back down. It's going to produce a boatload of Cherokee Purples. There's no doubt about that. We've also tried for the first time the Brandywine tomato, and we're going to put a cage around that one pretty soon. It's still kind of small. So here we've got the Hillbilly tomato. Over at Jerry, the beef farmer last year, we had this Hillbilly tomato, which was super good. So we are growing it this year this way. So here's the experiment, or one of them. And this one's going to be in the cage, like you see here, lightly pruned in the beginning, but you can see we've already got 2 big leads coming out, and we're going to let this thing bush out. It's going to fill out the entire cage here in just a month or 2. But now this other one here, this is also a Hillbilly, and we are going to train this one up a single lead. and we're gonna see how this one does, just being trained up this lead. Now that'll be my first time doing it with such a large tomato though, because typically when I do this kind of technique, I use the purple bumblebee, which is wonderful, but you gotta, when you're training it up a single lead, you can get it in a lot tighter of a space. You see, we've got 3 tomatoes in the space that 1 tomato takes up doing the cage method. So this is gonna show you guys how it kind of works. But then we're gonna secure this thing. See, we're just preliminary kind of training it over here now, but we're gonna secure this thing to this pole and we're gonna train it up that single lead, and those do really good. So do the super sweet 100s right here. They also do good with that method, but we'll see how these two do. Same exact tomato, side by side, same nutrients, same light exposure, everything. So that'll give you guys a real clear visual. All right guys, next thing I want to talk to you about is the garlic. Now, unbeknownst to most gardeners, garlic is one of the hungriest crops in the garden. Very hungry. So if you're seeing those yellowing tips on your garlic, it's generally an indicator that you need to feed it a little bit more, that you need to give it some more food. Now remember, the best thing is the base fertilizer. What we actually put into the soil is going to be the most important thing for the roots to absorb slowly throughout the season. But that ship has sailed already. You can top dress, yes, but you can't really remove the heavy mulch that we have down here. As you will see in a moment, I'll give you a close-up. But now, if you haven't really amended the soil good with something like manures or blood and bone meal or the Viking granular nutrients, something like that, you're gonna need to add the liquid fertilizers. So fish emulsion, fish fertilizer, any of the ones, the homemade ones you see from the channel, or something like Neptune's Harvest is really good. You can apply that. I would apply it every week with your aerated compost teas. Now here's the secret though, guys. You want to be adding at this point mid-season the magnesium sulfate, also known as Epsom salt. You want to add 1 teaspoon per gallon of water, and you want to do that about 2 or 3 waterings in a row. So about once a week for about 2 or 3 weeks starting right now, because the magnesium is always important for the plant to have, because the magnesium is the central ion in the chlorophyll molecule, and it gets used up in the process of photosynthesis. And so you'll see yellowing of leaves and kind of pale complexion when they can't process the sunlight because they don't have enough magnesium. So they always need the magnesium, but right when they're coming into scape time here in the next few weeks, they'll be starting to put out scapes in the next month pretty much. They'll be putting them out. They're gonna need that sulfur. They really want that sulfur because the sulfuric compounds is what's gonna help the garlic to ripen and produce lots of high quality odoriferous resinous oils, and also to store long, because it's the sulfuric compounds that help them to store all winter long. So guys, the garlic is going to be very hungry, okay? Now, you don't wanna be seeing too much of this leaf, this kind of thing where the tips are burning, or they're not really burning, they're just getting kind of hungry. This is a classic sign that the garlic needs a little bit fed. Now, if you're not fertilizing, or if you don't have good fertility, these can just be totally dead brown. I mean, already they can be looking like they're dying, but they're not actually. So this is a pretty good garlic crop. I'm pretty happy with it. We've had a really cool sort of late year, but still you can see that they're looking pretty good. And so I expect a good harvest of this garlic, but we are definitely going to give it the Epsom salt. Even though we've given it the Viking granular nutrients, we are still going to do the Epsom salts because they are really going to love that. And we're going to add that into our aerated compost tea right after we have finished brewing, right before the application process. Now we're also going to give that to our onions. Onions are in the same family as the garlic, and so they are very hungry as well. And you can see here that they're looking pretty healthy. Remember that they're going to put on all their vegetative growth during the as the days are getting longer. Then once the solstice comes and the days stall out and begin getting shorter, they're going to stop vegetative production and begin bulb formation. So you want them to have the maximum amount of leaves as possible by the time that transition happens. That's what's going to allow them to quickly produce big bulbs that will store all winter. And again, the storage is going to be really important based upon the sulfuric compounds that they're getting. And you can give that to them through the Epsom salt. Okay, another thing we want to check out is this celery, guys. And if you watched several videos ago, I planted this stuff out real early, way too early, and it got hit with hard freezes, several of them. Most of the plant died back, but look, it's all coming back nice and strong now. So I think that it's going to be just fine, of course. Now here's the tango celery, and it is looking pretty good, looking pretty much how we want to see the celery looking. Now, celery is one of the things that if you guys just get tiny little stalks of celery, it's because one, it's hungry, but two, you're probably crowding them out. So we have just one plant spaced about a foot apart on center this whole way. And you will see here in another month or so, this whole thing is just gonna be totally canopy. You're not gonna see any kind of landscaping fabric. Kind of like you already do with the parsley that you see here. Now this stuff is looking pretty good, pretty healthy. We eat the parsley constantly, guys. This stuff is so good for you and so wonderfully fresh tasting. We make a chimichurri, I think is the name. Guys, let me know in the comments what you do with the parsley. Do you make some good stuff with it? It's not just for garnish. Now here's something I want to show you. Look, what does not belong here, okay? Can you identify it? Yes, the potato. So we did a heavy till in the whole garden last year, and so there's potatoes all over the place, and they've almost become like an invasive little thing. Now this isn't gonna work, so we need to pull these up because they're coming up all over the place. Look how far down that potato was, and this thing just came up. They're almost like weeds, guys, now. They're everywhere, the potatoes are. So we need to get these things out of here before they grow too big. But here, you can see over here where the patty pan squash have just started sprouting here. We plant several seeds, but then we're gonna thin it down to just one, of course. This thing's gonna get massive. But look, the potatoes are trying to work their way up even through the landscaping fabric. Look how far that thing is. And yes, potatoes can find their way through landscaping fabric. I've planted them that way several years and just put the holes, they'll find their way through the fabric. Look, next to the yod fa, you see how they are coming up all over the place. Can you spot it here? Yes, we see the potatoes as well. The potatoes are coming up here next to the ishikura green onions, which are delicious and massive and hearty, by the way. But you gotta get on it early here. Oh, didn't even see this little bit of grass right here. Gotta pull this stuff, guys. Now is the time to get a jump start on all of the weeds and stuff. But doing it with the landscaping fabric, you're gonna have very, very little weeds in comparison to not. So there you go, guys. That's what's happening in my garden right now, and I hope you found this video useful. We tried out a little bit of different kind of filming techniques here. Let me know if you want to see more videos like this, or if you like the old style better, where I'm sitting in the house. But there's so many things going on now, guys, that you just gotta prioritize. You gotta say, okay, what's critical right now? And so can those strawberries sit there a little bit longer? Yes, that's perfectly fine. But did the ground cherries need planted ASAP? Yes, they absolutely did, because otherwise they're going to be starting to get root bound and everything. So now is the time, guys. Get that stuff in the ground. I'll see you every Saturday at 12 noon Eastern time for the live Q&A.